Is it possible that in spite of losing Klay Thompson and CP3 this offseason, that the Warriors guard rotation might be better? Let's get into it. What's good, y'all? So in this video, we're going to do a deep dive into the Warriors guard rotation and why it actually might be better than last season. First off, let's talk about who they lost, starting with franchise legend killer Klay Thompson. Now, we all know what Klay contributed and meant to this franchise the past 13 years. At his peak, before the back-to-back lower leg injuries, he was one of the best two-way guards in the league. Someone who was easily able to guard 1 through 3, but his ability to defend point guards is what made his defense so valuable. But these past few seasons, he just didn't have the lateral quickness to defend guards anymore, through no fault of his own. When you consider the natural age regression, on top of tearing his ACL and rupturing his Achilles back-to-back, it didn't matter how hard Klay rehabbed or trained, he was never going to get back to the same level defender he once was. But even so, Klay was still logging heavy minutes as a 2-guard out of necessity due to roster construction. But in this new phase of Klay's career post-injury, his ideal position is now small forward, due to his underrated strength and his ability to physically match up with bigger wings. But obviously, his inability to defend guards anymore complicates things next to a 6'2" Steph Curry, who's 36 years old. Steph needs to be paired with someone who can cover for him defensively and take on those tougher defensive assignments. That's what Klay used to be, but not so much anymore, which made playing Steph and Klay in the backcourt together tougher, especially against the better teams in the league that have multiple perimeter threats. Because not only do you have to hide 36-year-old Steph Curry defensively, now you gotta hide Klay Thompson as well. Moving on to Chris Paul. As solid as CP3 was for us, it was never going to be an ideal fit due to his age and size playing next to Steph Curry. Both 36 or older, both 6'2" or shorter. Having those two on the court at the same time makes you an unserious team defensively. Like, bro, in that lineup, you got 36-year-old Steph having to guard up and defend shooting guards. Come on, man. Like, that's the most unathletic backcourt in the league, the smallest in the league. You're just not a serious team with that lineup. So it limited how much Steph and Chris Paul could play next to each other. Now, if Chris Paul was strictly Steph's backup and only played when Steph was off the court, that'd be perfectly fine. But the Warriors are paying Chris Paul $30 million. So him playing 12 to 15 minutes per game, that's just a bad allocation of resources. In spite of his age and less than ideal fit, CP3 actually had good impact metrics for the Warriors. He was statistically one of the Warriors' best players last season, but it was always going to be a cap to how good of a team they could have been, closing with Steph Curry and Chris Paul together. So that's what they lost from last season. What I like about this new 4-man guard rotation of Steph, Buddy Hield, Pods, and De'Anthony Melton is that it's not one 2-man combo out of these 4 players that I don't think will play well next to each other. They all complement each other well, and they all bring a little something different to the table playing next to Steph. Think about the different combos. Steph and Hield, Steph and Melton, Steph and Pods, Pods and Buddy, Pods and Melton, Melton and Buddy. I would feel comfortable with any of these backcourt combos being deployed throughout the game, as long as the rest of the lineup that's out there with them works. At the center of this team, in a guard rotation, is Steph Curry. I feel like Mike Dunleavy did a good job of surrounding him with complementary players that all bring something different to the table. You got De'Anthony Melton, who's a 2-way 3-and-D guard that can take the toughest defensive assignment on one end and knock down threes on the other. He can also handle the ball a little bit, allowing Steph to play off ball if needed. And then you got Buddy Hield, who ever since he came into the league 8 years ago, has been one of the best shooters in the league as a career 40% three-point shooter. And then you have Podziemski, who outside of scoring, could pretty much do it all. He's a player who's a connector with a complementary skill set that fits well next to anyone. All right, starting off with Buddy Hield. I think everyone knows Buddy Hield's a great shooter, but I feel like he's still underrated in that aspect. For example, Buddy Hield led the league in 3-points make the past 5 seasons. More than Steph, more than Klay, more than Dame. That's honestly a pretty crazy stat. And when you combine that with the fact that he's a 40% career 3-point shooter, that's pretty damn impressive. Now look, Buddy Hield's not as good as Klay. He never has been. But is it possible, playing on this team, playing on Steph Curry, in this system that he will thrive in, is it possible that he can be 60 to 70% of what Klay Thompson is currently as a player for almost half the price? Look, no one can replace Klay. I'm not insinuating that, but I'm just asking a question. Is it possible for Buddy in this system playing off of Steph to replicate a portion of that? I don't know, but I guess we'll find out. But one thing I do know for sure is that Buddy Hield will thrive in this system. It's a reason he picked the Warriors over the Lakers in free agency, because he knows playing in this system with this motion offense, it's going to give him the best opportunity to shine. He's going to get the most open looks of his career. And without Klay, Steph desperately needs players that are going to capitalize off the advantages he creates. Buddy Hield's not a dude that you can leave open and dare to shoot. If you leave Buddy Hield open trying to sell out on Steph, he's going to make you pay. He's going to hit 5, 6, 7, 8 threes in the game. He's that good of a shooter. Moving on to De'Anthony Melton. I feel like I covered a decent amount of Melton in my last video, but there's a few more things I want to touch on. First off, getting Melton on a $13 million contract is a steal. The only reason the Warriors were able to afford him at that price was because he's coming off a back injury that limited him to 38 games last season with Philly. But if Melton's fully healthy, and all indications point to that being the case, then I think hypothetically, he's more of a $17 million per year player, and the Warriors got him for less than 13. I think Melton's going to have one hell of a season with the Warriors. Him, along with Andrew Wiggins, are going to be tasked with guarding the biggest perimeter threats on the other team. I'm not sure who's going to be starting between him and Pods, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's a starter to open the season. He's a destructive defender that be terrorizing opponents, and when you put him next to Wiggins, with Draymond and TJD as their backline, bro, teams are going to be in hell. The guy might only be 6'2", but he's a 6'2" demon with a 6'8" wingspan. And at age 26, entering his prime, I think he's primed for the best season of his career. I just hope the Warriors can be able to retain him after the season. Moving on to Brandon Podziemski. Pods is the definition of a connector. Like I said earlier, he does a little bit of everything. One of the biggest ways he found a way to make an impact was with his rebounding. Brandon Podziemski is one of the best rebounding guards in the league. If you look at his rookie season, he averaged 6 rebounds a game in 27 minutes. If you look at his rebounding on a per 36-minute basis, he's at 7.8 per game. He also had a 12% rebound rate. For reference, Russell Westbrook, who's widely considered the greatest rebounding point guard of all time, had a 12.7% rebound rate last season. So Pods, as a 20-year-old rookie, was right there with him. And for those of you who were thinking maybe his rebounding was a fluke, first of all, I don't know why you would think that. Getting that many rebounds over the course of a season is hard. On top of that, he averaged 9 rebounds a game in college. Yeah, he does steal a few rebounds every now and then from his big man, but he has an elite nose for the ball. Wherever the ball bounces, he's always one of the first players there. His instincts and anticipation for rebounding is uncanny. Moving on to his three-point shooting. He had a rocky rookie season in terms of shooting for the simple fact that it was times where he was hesitant and it was times where he was aggressive, but it was never consistent. But even with that, he ended the season shooting 38.5% from 3 on 3.2 attempts per game. The percentage is good. The three-point attempts are a little low though. But in college, he shot 44% on 6 attempts a game. So he's definitely a good shooter. He just needs to be more aggressive with his shot. And he knows that. He's already spoken on the fact that the coaching staff is challenging him to be a more aggressive three-point shooter this season. Especially with Klay gone, they're going to need more from him offensively. A few other aspects of Pod's game that I really appreciated. He has a high basketball IQ, and you can measure that by, number one, looking at his assist-to-turnover ratio. For a rookie to have a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio, that's pretty solid in my opinion. He didn't make too many mistakes, and the mistakes that he did make, you can chalk it up to just rookie mistakes. But watching him play, you can tell that he's a pretty good decision maker. He even had a game his rookie season where he had 14 assists to 0 turnovers. That's pretty damn impressive, man. He also led the league in charges. For a rookie to come in at 20 years old and lead the NBA in charges his first season, how is that not a reflection on his IQ as a player? He's obviously really smart, and he obviously has great instincts, and he studies the game. Pods is participating in the Team USA Select Team, which practices against Team USA. He's also scheduled to play in Summer League. And although he played poorly in Summer League last season as a rookie, I expect him to dominate this time around. So that's the 4 main guys in the guard rotation. It's also fair to note that players like Moses Moody, Lindy Waters, GP2, and Wiggins can also get minutes at shooting guard, which plays a factor into the rotation as well. Because we all know throughout the course of the season, there will be injuries and there will be rest nights. So while I expect those guys to mostly be deployed as wings on this team, they're all capable of playing in the guard rotation as well. Alright, so between Steph, Pods, Melton, and Buddy, who plays the most? Who plays the least? There's 96 total minutes available in a rotation at point guard and shooting guard per game. I got Steph penciled in for 33 minutes a game this season. I got Pods somewhere around 26, Melton around 23, and Buddy around 14. That all equates to 96 minutes per game. But we all know Steve Kerr, and we all know how much he loves his 3-guard lineups. So I expect some lineups where Pods might be a small forward, Buddy might be a small forward, whatever Kirk concocts that day, whatever the case may be. We know Steve, it is what it is. But keeping that in mind, Pods can play from 26 to 28 minutes, and I can also see Melton's minutes getting up to 26 per game. Even though I got Pods playing the second most minutes out of this group behind Steph, I can definitely see Melton playing the second most minutes. His defense is going to be extremely valuable to this team. So we'll see how that flip-flops throughout the course of the season. In conclusion, I like what Mike Dunleavy did building out this guard rotation. I think this is a deep group, a versatile group, especially when you consider Lindy Waters, Moses Moody are guys who absolutely can get minutes here, as well as Wiggins. Although they lost the point guard, Chris Paul, and franchise legend Klay Thompson, you can make the argument that this guard rotation is better than last season's, due to them having a more complementary stable of guard options that make for better lineup combinations. Anyways, that's all I got for y'all. I hope you enjoyed the breakdown. I'll be back to break down a wing position and a big position in later videos. If I entertained you or you learned something new, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. I'll holler at you on the next one. Peace.